A major shift in the Laura Harrier and Klay Thompson divorce narrative has surfaced, raising new questions about what is really happening behind the hidden curtain of Hollywood's most mysterious power couple. Viewers were left absolutely stunned this week after footage emerged showing Laura visibly emotional, struggling to hold back a flood of tears as she addressed the sudden, jagged end of her marriage. Her voice cracked, her hands shook, and the sheer weight of the betrayal seemed unmistakable to anyone watching. But what happened just hours later is what has sent the internet into a total tailspin. While Laura was breaking down, Klay Thompson was captured in a completely different state. Relaxed posture, light conversation, and what many are calling a cold, calculated smirk. The contrast is sharp, jarring, and for many fans deeply unsettling. Why is one spouse visibly devastated while the other appears unusually calm, even comfortable with the wreckage? Is this simply two people coping differently? Or is there something much darker unfolding? Something the public hasn't been told yet? In this exclusive report, we break down the secret timeline, the hidden signs, and the growing theories that Klay may have been planning this exit for years. Stay with us. The picture is becoming clearer and much, much stranger. The unexpected unraveling of Laura Harrier and Klay Thompson's marriage has left the entertainment world absolutely paralyzed. Not because celebrity divorces are rare, but because of the stark emotional contrast between the two partners that feels more like a psychological thriller than a standard breakup. While Laura appears devastated, fighting back tears in every public appearance, Klay has been seen composed, even relaxed, and that discrepancy has now become the absolute center of public debate. After we open with our exclusive hook and analyze that first interview clip where an insider claimed Klay no longer needed the platform Laura provided, the question grew even louder. Why does one spouse look broken while the other seems completely unbothered? To understand that contrast, we must go back not just to where the marriage cracked, but to where the signs were quietly building for years, unnoticed or dismissed by a public blinded by their red carpet glamour. Laura Harrier has always presented herself as a powerhouse, a woman who navigated the industry with a mix of grace and iron will. Through controversies, cast changes, and media feuds, she always maintained a level of composure that made her seem untouchable. But in her recent statement announcing the divorce, her voice faltered in a way we have never heard. She spoke about protecting her peace, about focusing on her future, and about navigating this emotional transition with her dignity intact. Her eyes were swollen, her tone was fragile, and for the first time in years the confident Laura sounded unsure of her next move. This emotional vulnerability is what triggered a wave of sympathy across social media. Supporters described her demeanor as heartbroken, exhausted, and betrayed. Others insisted there had to be more behind her collapse, some private truth not fully disclosed to the masses. But while the public expected Klay to reflect even a fraction of that grief, his reactions were surprisingly different. In multiple recent sightings, Klay Thompson looked composed, not distressed, not shaken, and certainly not weighed down by the end of an era. Observers noted he seemed light, even displaying a subtle smirk when reporters mentioned his former partner. His tone in private conversations leaked by staff came off as casual, not the energy of a man losing a decade-long bond. This disconnect sparked immediate speculation that he may have emotionally detached long before the public even knew something was wrong. When paired with that potent interview moment suggesting he no longer needs her, many viewers began to form their own theories about the true nature of his involvement. Some say Klay looks relieved, as if a burden has been lifted. Some say he looks guilty, hiding behind a mask of indifference. Some say he looks like a man who is waiting for a specific clock to run out. But everyone agrees something about his calmness doesn't match Laura's breakdown. Laura and Klay met years ago during a time when her success was skyrocketing and overshadowing everything in its path. Klay was ambitious, hardworking, but operating in a vastly different financial and social orbit. Many questioned the relationship early on, not out of malice but because of the glaring imbalance. It was Laura's fame versus Klay's behind-the-scenes background. It was Laura's wealth versus Klay's slower financial rise. It was the deep-seated distrust from Laura's inner circle versus Klay's insistence that the marriage was genuine and built on solid ground. Even those close to the family accused Klay of being an opportunist, accusations that at the time were dismissed as harsh or exaggerated. But those old suspicions have resurfaced now that the divorce aligns with a very specific timeline. The narrative is not necessarily that Klay never loved Laura, but that both love and opportunity may have been mixed in a way that is only now becoming clear. And that mixture may explain why Klay seems so incredibly calm today, because emotionally he may have processed this exit years ago. Inside the marriage, according to people close to the situation, Laura carried a massive emotional and financial weight, being the primary engine providing security, managing multiple businesses, and juggling the scrutiny of the spotlight. Meanwhile, Klay was often criticized by the public as the plus one or the man who simply got lucky. Those labels weren't fair, but they existed and they chipped away at the foundation of the relationship. Sources say Klay grew frustrated with how the world perceived him, while others say he grew too comfortable with the lifestyle Laura provided. Still others claim the constant broadcasting of their personal lives added a pressure that neither could fully handle. Whether Klay stayed out of love, comfort, or simple convenience is something only he knows for sure. But what is clear is that the emotional timeline between them diverged sharply and permanently. Multiple insiders claim their connection shifted over time, not dramatically with a single explosion, but gradually like a slow leak. A growing emotional distance, more frequent disagreements, and Klay traveling more while Laura was busy with her own commitments. The moment fans now point to is an old video clip where Klay speaks to Laura in a dismissive tone, suggesting tension had already been simmering beneath the surface of those perfect Instagram photos. The reason we believe that this marriage did not last is because you can't bring other people into your bedroom and expect the walls to hold. I know Laura defended it and said it doesn't affect the relationship, but when you bring outside elements into your bed, that man starts looking at you in a different way. He knows the truth, and it is not just rumors anymore. There are stories about wild parties and blurred boundaries that don't set a marriage up for success. I really think when you bring other people into your private space, you lose the very thing you are trying to protect. And when we heard that Klay was seen at places like Magic City messing with people like Diamond, it all started to make sense. People thought we were hating, but we were just watching the patterns. Laura is smart and she is beautiful, but she made a mistake thinking she could control the chaos. Laura's tears today might reflect grief over the end of the marriage, and the slow realization that she may have ignored the signs for far too long. As the emotional contrast between them becomes more visible, fans have split into two distinct camps. One camp believes Klay was never fully invested, and was simply waiting for the right moment to leave with his pockets full. They believe the timing of the split and his calm demeanor suggest a man who had his exit strategy signed and sealed months ago. The other camp believes Klay stayed until he simply couldn't take the pressure of being in her shadow anymore. They believe he endured disrespect and skepticism for a decade and finally reached his breaking point. The truth likely lies somewhere in the middle, but the contrast remains undeniable and haunting. Laura is falling apart in real time while Klay moves through the world as if nothing has happened. And that contrast demands a further investigation into the secret reports that have recently surfaced regarding their final months together. Arguments have been circulating online about blurred boundaries and decisions that may have quietly damaged the foundation long before any papers were filed. There is footage of Klay acting disgusted with Laura while her friends were around, and it shows a dynamic that was far from healthy. He was telling people to shut up and acting like he was fed up with the entire production of her life. He basically reached a point where he didn't care who was watching, and that is the most dangerous stage of a relationship. When a man loses respect for the woman who built the platform he stands on, the end is inevitable. Klay had a look on his face that said he was done playing the role of the supportive husband. He was ready to speak his truth regardless of how it made Laura look. And as this story continues to unfold, it is becoming increasingly clear that the emotional divide wasn't just a phase but a permanent fracture. On one side you have a woman fighting to save a legacy, and on the other you have a man who has already checked out and is looking at the exit sign with a smile on his face. The timeline of their separation suggests they were living separate lives for a long time before the world knew. Laura was working in one city while Klay stayed in another, and the communication simply died out in the silence of those empty rooms. This slow unraveling is what makes her current breakdown so painful to watch, because it feels like she is just now realizing she has been standing in the ruins of a marriage alone for months. This slow emotional unraveling is exactly what set the stage for the explosive confrontation that insiders claim took place behind closed doors just weeks before the public filing. While the world saw a united front at industry events, the reality was a Cold War characterized by long stretches of silence and increasingly bitter disagreements over the future of their shared empire. Part 2 of this investigation into the Laura Harrier and Klay Thompson divorce reveals that the financial stakes were just as high as the emotional ones, and the calmness we see in Klay today might be linked to a very specific set of legal maneuvers. Sources close to the legal team suggest that Klay had been consulting with high-level advisors long before Laura even realized the marriage was beyond saving. This proactive approach explains why he appears so steady while Laura is visibly reeling from the shock of the situation. It has been reported that the division of assets is becoming a major battleground, with both parties fighting over property business interests and the intellectual property they created together during their 11-year run. But beyond the money, there is the issue of the 10-year prenup clause that everyone is whispering about. In many high-profile marriages, these clauses act as a ticking clock where the financial payout for the less wealthy spouse increases significantly once the 10-year mark is crossed. Klay stayed for 11 years, which many analysts believe was a calculated move to ensure he walked away with the maximum possible settlement. This theory adds a layer of cynicism to his current relaxed demeanor, as it suggests his presence in the marriage for the last year was more about a contract than a connection. Meanwhile, Laura was reportedly trying to rekindle the spark, oblivious to the fact that the man across the table was essentially waiting for a timer to go off. This discrepancy in intent is what makes the current public display so jarring to witness. While she mourns the loss of a life partner, he is acting like a man who just completed a successful business merger and is ready to enjoy the profits. The rumors of third parties only complicate this narrative further, with new reports suggesting that Klay had been seen in the company of several different women in cities where Laura was filming. These sightings were often dismissed as business meetings or casual outings with friends, but in the context of a divorce they take on a much more suspicious tone. One particular incident involving a high-end lounge in Atlanta has resurfaced, where witnesses claim Klay was acting like a single man months before the separation was official. He was reportedly seen laughing and flirting, showing the same relaxed energy that has now become his trademark in the wake of the split. When these reports reached Laura, they were allegedly the catalyst for her emotional breakdown as she realized the extent of the deception. The feeling of being the last to know is a recurring theme in the commentary surrounding this divorce. Fans are pointing out that Laura was the one posting anniversary tributes and supportive messages, while Klay had virtually scrubbed her from his digital life, or at the very least stopped engaging with her content. This digital distance was a precursor to the physical distance that eventually ended the marriage. But it is not just about the cheating rumors or the money. It is about the fundamental loss of respect that occurs when a private life becomes a public spectacle. In many of their shared appearances from the last 2 years, you can see the moments where the mask slips. Klay would often look away while Laura was speaking, or offer short dismissive answers that hinted at a deep-seated resentment. This resentment likely stemmed from the constant comparisons to Laura's success and the feeling that he would always be the secondary character in her story. For a man with his own ambitions, being the supportive husband to a global superstar can eventually become a cage. His current calmness is being interpreted by some as him finally breaking out of that cage and reclaiming his own narrative. He is no longer Klay Harrier Thompson, he is just Klay, and to him that feels like a victory. However, for Laura, the loss of the marriage is a loss of a central part of her identity. She invested a decade into building a family and a brand alongside this man, and to see him walk away with a smile is a level of disrespect that she was clearly not prepared for. The investigation into their final months together shows a pattern of Klay withdrawing more and more into his own world, while Laura worked harder to keep the family unit intact. She was reportedly the one suggesting therapy and retreats, while he was the one making excuses to be away on business. This uneven effort created a vacuum that was eventually filled by the rumors and the third parties. The contrast in their public statements also tells a story of two people living in different realities. Laura's statement was filled with words like healing, transition, and privacy, while Klay's team has released brief cold updates that focus on the legalities and the future. There is no mention of grief or loss from his side, which has only fueled the public perception that he was never truly in it for the long haul. As the legal proceedings continue, more details are expected to leak regarding the specific terms of their agreement and the events that led to the final blowout. Some insiders claim there is a bombshell revelation waiting to drop, something so significant that it would explain why Laura is so devastated and why Klay is so confident. Whether it is a secret financial account, an undisclosed relationship, or a betrayal of trust that goes beyond the typical celebrity scandal, the anticipation is building. The public is now watching every move they make, looking for clues in their social media posts and their choice of companions. Every smile from Klay is seen as a jab at Laura, and every tear from Laura is seen as an indictment of Klay's character. This is more than just a divorce, it is a battle for public perception, and right now the world is divided. The narrative of the opportunist versus the heartbroken star is a powerful one, and it is driving the conversation across all platforms. As we move into the next phase of this breakdown, we have to look at the role of the inner circles. Laura's family has been vocal about their support for her, and their long-standing doubts about Klay. Her mother, Linda Harrier Watts, has reportedly been a pillar of strength for Laura, while also reminding everyone that she saw this coming from the beginning. This family tension was a constant backdrop to the marriage, and likely contributed to the eventual collapse. On the other side, Klay's friends have circled the wagons, defending his right to be happy and his right to move on. They claim he was the one who was truly unhappy and that he stayed for the sake of the kids and the brand until he could no longer breathe. This conflict between the two camps is spilling over into the media, with leaked stories coming from both sides. The truth is being buried under layers of spin and sensationalism, making it difficult to discern what actually happened in the quiet moments between them. But the images don't lie. The image of Laura Harrier in tears and Klay Thompson in a state of zen will be the defining visual of this divorce. It represents the end of a fantasy and the start of a very harsh reality for everyone involved. As we continue to dig deeper into the files and the leaked reports, the timeline of betrayal becomes even more clear, suggesting that the smile Klay wears today was earned through months of quiet preparation for this very moment. He didn't just leave, he escaped, and he did it right when the terms were in his favor. This realization is what is keeping Laura awake at night, and what is keeping the world glued to their screens as the drama continues to escalate without an end in sight. This realization is what is keeping Laura awake at night, and what is keeping the world glued to their screens as the drama continues to escalate without an end in sight. As we enter the final chapter of this investigation, the focus shifts from the why to the how. How did a relationship that started with such promise turn into a clinical execution of a legal strategy? Part 3 of the breakdown explores the ultimate fallout and the consequences that are now rippling through their professional and personal circles. The silence from Klay Thompson camp is perhaps the loudest thing about this entire situation. While Laura has been forced to navigate the emotional debris in the public eye, Klay has maintained a level of detachment that is almost chilling to those who once considered him a friend. Insiders suggest that this was not a spontaneous decision but a meticulously timed exit that had been in the works for over 18 months. Reports are now surfacing that Klay had been slowly moving personal assets and securing his own business interests well before the first argument ever went public. This level of calculated planning is what has turned the public tide against him in many circles. People are asking how someone can share a bed with a person for over a decade while simultaneously plotting a life without them. It paints a picture of a man who was physically present, but emotionally a ghost long before the papers were filed. For Laura, this realization has been more painful than the divorce itself. To look back at old photos and memories and realize that while she was celebrating their love, he was checking his watch and waiting for a contract to expire is the ultimate betrayal. The fallout has also extended to their business empires. For years, the Harrier and Thompson brand was a gold standard for celebrity partnerships. They had joint ventures in fashion, lifestyle, and production. But now those entities are being dismantled piece by piece. Lawyers are reportedly arguing over everything from the font used in their branding to the ownership of minor subsidiaries. It is a messy public divorce of a corporate entity as much as it is a marital one. Employees are being forced to take sides, and the once thriving environment of their headquarters is now a toxic zone of NDAs and legal threats. Public backlash has also begun to hit Klay's personal brand. While he may have secured the financial bag, his reputation is taking a massive hit. He is being memed as the man who waited for the timer to go off, and his once cool and collected image is being reinterpreted as cold and opportunistic. Sponsors are reportedly reconsidering their ties to him, fearing that the negative sentiment surrounding the divorce will bleed into their products. In the world of high-stakes influence, perception is currency, and Klay is currently spending his at a rapid rate. Meanwhile, Laura is attempting to rebuild her life on a foundation of raw honesty. Her decision to show her tears rather than hide behind a PR wall has garnered her a new level of respect from women who have faced similar betrayals. She is being seen as a survivor rather than just a victim. However, the road to recovery is long. Sources say she is currently focusing on her children and her individual projects, trying to separate her self-worth from the man she spent her entire adult life supporting. The Broadway and film projects she has lined up are being seen as her therapy and her way of reclaiming her voice. The legal battle is far from over and many expect the upcoming court dates to reveal even more scandalous details. There are rumors of a massive file of evidence that Laura's team has collected involving Klay's movements over the last year. This could include travel records, communication logs, and financial statements that contradict the narrative he has tried to build. If this evidence goes public, it could shift the power dynamic once again. But Klay seems unbothered by these threats, which suggests he either has nothing to hide or he has already accounted for every possible leak. The contrast in their energy continues to be the main topic of conversation on every talk show and social media thread. You have Laura, who is a woman of deep emotion and public vulnerability, and you have Klay, who is a master of the silent treatment. This silent reaction is what sparks the most drama because it allows the public to project whatever they want onto him. Is he a villain who tricked a star, or is he a man who suffered in silence and is finally happy? The world is divided, but the sympathy currently lies with the woman who isn't afraid to show she is hurting. As we look at the potential consequences, we have to consider the long-term impact on celebrity culture. This divorce has highlighted the dangers of the blurred lines between personal life and brand management. It has shown that even the most seemingly stable relationships can be hollowed out from the inside by the pressures of fame and the allure of financial gain. The 10-year clause has become a cautionary tale for every rising star currently planning their own nuptials. It is a reminder that in the world of the elite, marriage is often a high-stakes gamble where the house always wins. The role of the media in this unraveling cannot be ignored either. The constant surveillance and the rush to post every tear and every smile has turned a private tragedy into a global sport. Every interview moment is sliced into seconds to find a shift in tone or a change in expression. This intense scrutiny has likely made it impossible for either party to find peace. For Laura, every tear is a headline, and for Klay, every smile is a scandal. They are trapped in a cycle of public judgment that will likely follow them for the rest of their lives. In the final analysis, this divorce is about more than just two people. It is about the death of a certain kind of Hollywood dream. The dream that you can have it all: the fame, the money, the power, and the perfect partnership. Laura and Klay represented that dream for over a decade, and seeing it collapse in such a sharp and uneven way is a reality check for their millions of followers. It proves that behind the filters and the scripted red carpet moments there are real human emotions and real cold calculations. Laura Harrier will likely emerge from this as a symbol of resilience. She will continue to cry when she needs to, and she will continue to work until she finds her footing again. Her story is one of a woman who loved deeply and was blindsided by a man who was playing a different game. On the other hand, Klay Thompson will remain a mystery. Whether he is truly happy or just truly prepared, he has succeeded in changing his life. But at what cost? He has gained his independence, but he has lost the trust of a public that once adored him as the perfect husband. As this investigative report concludes, we are left with the image of that stark emotional divide. One side is falling apart while the other stays calm. One side is mourning the past while the other is celebrating the future. The divorce is a fact, but the truth behind the smiles and the tears is something we may never fully know. All we can do is watch the timeline and wait for the next shift in this ongoing drama. The picture is indeed clearer, but it is also much darker than we ever imagined when this journey began 11 years ago. The saga of Laura and Klay serves as a final reminder that in the world of celebrities, the silence is often more revealing than the noise. Klay's silent reaction has spoken volumes, and it has sparked a conversation that will last long after the final papers are signed. Whether it is relief or strategy, his calmness in the face of her devastation is the ultimate enigma. And as the final credits roll on this marriage, the world remains hooked, waiting for the final truth to slip out in a moment of weakness that may never come for the man who planned his escape to perfection. Now that we have exposed the layers of this scandal, it is time to ask the real questions. Did you see the signs coming before the announcement was made? Do you think Klay's calmness is a sign of guilt or a sign of peace after years of pressure? And most importantly, who do you believe is telling the true story in this sea of rumors and leaked reports? This is a massive shift in the celebrity landscape, and we want to know where you stand. The evidence is on the table, and the emotional contrast is undeniable. Make sure you hit that like button if you found this deep dive insightful, and share your thoughts in the comments below, because this conversation is just getting started. We will be here to track every legal move, every public breakdown, and every hidden detail that the mainstream media is too afraid to touch. Subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss a beat of this unfolding divorce drama. The truth is out there and we are going to find it together, one report at a time. Stay tuned for more because the fallout from the Laura Harrier and Klay Thompson split is only going to get crazier from here. Now that we have exposed the layers of this scandal, it is time to ask the real questions that the mainstream media is too afraid to touch. Did you see the signs coming before the official announcement was made? Or were you, like many, blinded by the red carpet glamour? Do you think Klay's chilling calmness is a sign of cold-blooded guilt? Or is it simply the peace of a man who has finally escaped years of hidden pressure? And most importantly, who do you believe is telling the true story in this sea of leaked reports and raw emotions? This is a massive shift in the celebrity landscape, and the fallout is far from over. We want to know where you stand in this divided narrative. Is Klay the strategist the internet claims he is? Or is Laura's public breakdown part of a bigger PR play? The evidence is on the table, and the emotional contrast is undeniable. If you want to stay ahead of the next bombshell revelation, make sure you hit that like button and share your wildest theories in the comments below. Subscribe and turn on notifications right now, so you never miss a beat of this unfolding divorce drama. We are digging deeper every day, and you won't want to be late when the final truth finally slips out. Stay tuned because this story is just getting started.